Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's IG Live. I hope you're having a beautiful day so far on this Thursday. Today, we are going to be joined by Dr. Scott Lyons to talk about drama, all things drama and chaos, and hopefully learning some tools, some skills, some learnings to be in better relationship with people in our lives that possibly are causing chaos and drama. Maybe we're doing that ourselves and recognize and being able to recognize and having some awareness around that and maybe changing those patterns. I just had such an amazing hour with Dr. Scott on our podcast. Can't wait for you to hear that episode. And today he's going to share 30 minutes with us to answer all of your questions regarding drama, being addicted to drama. I'm going to hold up his book. I know it's backwards on Instagram, but you can get a sense of what it looks like. I read his book this week. I had the pleasure of learning from him through the audiobook and with the paper copy, and it's excellent. I have a new appreciation for drama and having more compassion and empathy with people in our lives that perpetuate drama and possibly are addicted to it. So I learned a lot. So thank you, Dr. Scott. I'm going to ask him to join and then we'll get going. There he is.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello, Dr. Scott Lyons. Thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We had some excellent questions come in from our community, and every time we do a live, it's great. I'm going to be watching the chat, so if anybody asks questions live, we've got Dr. Scott here for 30 minutes, so let's do this. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Also, if you want to troll me in the chats, I also love that. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I don't even know what that means, but it doesn't sound good.
Trolling like comments, like dramatic comments. We love
Oh,
the drama.
oh yeah, we love the drama. We're all about drama. Let's start with that first question. Why is it that some people seem to thrive on chaos?
It's a great question. It's part of it is that like when we talk about thriving, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about like when someone's in the throes of drama or crisis or something, it it gives them a boost of energy for one. So if you think about like drinking a cup of coffee after like you're feeling kind of sluggish, drama actually stress does the same thing. And so, I mean, one of the things I've been in a bunch of natural disasters, for example,
You
and
have been?
I've been in like almost, I think it's like six or seven now natural disasters that are pretty intense. And I realized I kept seeing this over and over again whenever I was in a natural disaster. Is like my skill sets would come in, like I'd be like, okay, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're doing it. And I get all the people who feel are like kind of confused. And I was like, wow, I really thrive in chaos. The high intensity, the like makes me brings together like my ADHD goes away and I am hyper focused. And that's one of the things that stress actually does inherently is it makes us feel more connected to other people. It gives us better attention, strangely enough, in the beginning. It gives us pain relief. And all of those things reinforce certain patterns in which people stay in the chaos as opposed to leave the chaos to attend to some of their own underlying trauma and pain.
Yep. So you can see why all those reasons people it feels good sometimes. It does feel good, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Why do I keep picking partners who bring chaos, even when I know it's going to hurt?
Oh, I feel you on that question. For those who find themselves in like on the chronic roller coaster of relationships where it's like someone's there and then they're not there, or there's like a lot of emotional whiplash, or like lots of big fights and then big breakups. And part of that is because what actual healthy relationship consists of is consistency, right? And we have to be able, and the people we pick have to be able to tolerate consistency, which brings us into further and further elements of intimacy. So if we think of intimacy as like rings, like a tree, and in the first couple months in a relationship, we'll often have like just be on the surface level of that tree, the ring of intimacy. And as we go further and further into the depth and show more vulnerability and all of these things, it will trigger more things from our past. Our exiled parts within us will get hit more frequently as we go deeper into intimacy. And that's intolerable for many people. And so, to preserve their
Mm.
sense of safety in the world, they create fights for no apparent reason, or they pick on people, or, in the relationship, or they'll disappear. And it truly has to do with hitting that exiled part of themselves, that exiled child part of themselves, that trauma, as the intimacy has deepened in towards that core wound. And so,
Oh my
and so
goodness.
that's why, and we often, so that's what's happening. And so the question is like, why do we keep choosing people? We are repeating what's familiar, right? So, for example, in my childhood, there was a lot of overlap between abuse and love. And so when I was an adult and looking for relationships, I didn't want that, but that's what I kept unintentionally moving towards in my relationships with people who would hurt me or who had hurtful patterns, I should say, and would also be available for love sometimes. And that felt like home. I couldn't quite name it. I didn't have the language for it, but it felt
Yeah.
so familiar that I kept being magnetized towards it. I also recognized that my own attachment challenges, my own ways in which I didn't want that vulnerable, hurt parts of myself to be exposed, were best positioned. I was best positioned to be with people who couldn't go very deep with intimacy, even if I wanted that. So I think it's really important to recognize two things. When we're in these roller coaster relationships, how are we contributing to them? Even if it's just, why are we staying? Like, what's happening with us? How is this familiar? And to also recognize there is a whole dopamine response that keeps you actually attached to the roller coaster itself. Because you're always, especially if this is your upbringing, if love was there sometimes, but not all the time, right? That inconsistency of attention and love, that's the hardest, the most challenging pattern that forms because we're open, like it's why we're open to like when there's a little bit of love or a lot of bit of love at one time, we're go, oh, this is amazing. And then when it's gone and it's that roller coaster, we're like, but it will come back. Even
Hmm.
if we're like their behavior is inappropriate or the boundaries have been crossed, but like it will come back because that's the history I've had before, where love does come back, even if it means that I have to go through hell to get there.
Right. That makes me, that is the first time I've heard this analogy. Scott, you've said so many great things today. I really, around the tree, around the rings of the tree,
Oh yeah,
and how it makes perfect sense. It's like when you're first with somebody, you're in this ring, and then
yeah,
or sorry, like maybe out here, right? If you're
the
gonna,
outer ring, yeah.
and then it's like, okay, the more intimacy is built. Okay, now you're seeing this part of me. We're shedding this
Hmm.
part, and now we're at this part. And also, I think if it's like you're in and out of these chaotic relationships, it could be that you're getting too close to that intimacy. Oh, I want to be on the
Yeah,
outside with,
yeah,
and that's why it's like maybe you're bouncing to new
yeah,
relationships, so you're not getting too
yeah,
intimate too.
yeah. And sometimes enacting and going into dramatic behavioral patterns is a way of coming back out to the surface. Yeah.
Right. Create the chaos so you don't have to go deeper in.
And
Wow.
create the chaos, navigate, be in the drama to avoid the underlying trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody asked, I feel like my life is never calm. How do I even start to slow down?
Mm. So what's interesting in the research is when we're in a more activated stress response, time feels different, right? Let's say you're running late for the airport and you're driving at 60 miles an hour, which is how fast you drive anyways, and it's the speed limit. But all of a sudden, 60 miles an hour that everyone else is going, it feels like they're driving so slow, right? But they're driving the
Mm,
speed limit. And it's only a sense of slowness because you're in a more agitated state, activated like stress response, which actually changes your sense of time. And why I say this in response to that question is that becomes chronic. for those of us who have been in a constant state of chaos, it actually is because part of that is our natural rhythm, right?
Hmm.
We like you might be attracted to cities like New York City if you have like, and you might seek relationships or seek situations that really match that sort of inner chaos that has never been resolved, or was the environment you grew up in that you absorbed and became your inner rhythm. So when I say to when people ask like, I feel like my life is always chaos, I kind of ask the opposite question of like, could you tolerate it if it wasn't?
Mm.
Do you have the capacity to be with what is the opposite of chaos? And do you have the capacity for that? Everyone will say, yes, no, that's what I want. Cool, that's what you want. Do you have the physiological capacity to tolerate it is a totally different story. So sometimes when we were like, my life is in constant chaos, I get kind of like the tough brother and I say, okay, can you tolerate it if it was any different? And how are you contributing to that yourself and what you're seeking, creating, or who you're around? It's a tough
Yes.
question, but it's an important one.
It is. It is. In the book, Scott, you talk about your own journey from being like totally addicted to drama to,
Yeah.
like healing from it, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, how did you get to a place like this is a big question, but even just a few things that you did, like the awareness piece, but then like that in itself is such a big thing, right? Becoming aware,
Yeah.
like I'm actually perpetuating a lot of this in my own life. And
Yeah.
then was it just like spending more time on your by yourself in introspection?
I wish awareness alone was the great
It's not.
healer. It's not. Awareness, like you can still be aware and be an asshole. I am a
Oh
I have
yeah.
done that.
Right, right.
And so awareness alone doesn't actually heal things.
No.
Awareness is the road towards healing. And, in fact, it can sometimes be more painful because we're aware of our behavioral pattern. We're aware of our own cravings towards funky relationships or anything like that of like, oh, I am contributing to this. But the gap between awareness and being able to change is sometimes so big, it's overwhelming. But for me, after awareness, you start to literally create more space between the impulse to go seek or create chaos or stress and pausing and finding a little bit of stillness or softness or settling before you action it. And as you
Mm.
create more gaps between the impulse to rev yourself up into a state of stress or to go watch the news or to go enter into the other relationship, these things that are causing you the stress, you're going, what if I give myself a little bit more space between doing that? And then you're building up more space. And when you built up more space, it allows you to not go into the reflexive pattern of drama as a means to avoid your trauma. And you get to dive in and start to address the fuel of the addiction, which is the unprocessed pain and trauma that's never gotten to be addressed. Then you're starting into the process of deep healing.
Creating a multitude of opportunities for space. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just like taking a couple deep breaths, pause before you pick up the phone to have that, or not writing that email that's like full of
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Like go
Creating
take a
more
yeah.
space.
Go take a walk before you respond to that text message. Like we all can get worked up and be like, I'm gonna show you. Go take a walk.
Yeah.
Go do it. Sometimes stillness is too hard. So I say, go do an activity. Go mow your lawn. Go swimming. Go do a physical activity that gives you a break from following through on these impulses that will typically lead to just more drama.
Yes. I really like that. It's very tangible. Just creating space in ways. Yeah. So many ways we can do that. How do I deal with someone who complains about stress and overwhelm, but continues to overload themselves? Like we
Oh,
talked about this on the podcast, right? Like you
we
hear it all the time.
did.
It's just like I am so busy. I'm just so busy. I can't even.
So that is to me one of the telltale signs of someone who's addicted to drama is like they're like, I'm just so busy. I'm like, why are you overscheduling yourself? Oh, I have to. I'm like, well, okay, so now you're doing what's called creating the bind, which is I have to. I come up with all of these reasons why I have to stay so busy, why I have to do all of these things. And my behavior, so it's then my behavior is warranted, but then I'm so overwhelmed by it. And so it creates this emotional bind, which is one of the ways we rev ourselves up into a state of activation and stress. It's a strategy, right?
Mm.
It's like a client of mine once said, "Oh, I have to get a house cleaner." And I was like, "Okay, get a house cleaner." They're like, "Oh no, but if I get a house cleaner, it means I didn't do it, and then that's shameful. I should be the one cleaning my house." And I was like, "Okay, then clean your house." They're like, "But I don't have time, and I don't have the energy, and my kids take so much out of me, so I really need a house cleaner." I'm like, "Then get a house cleaner." And it's like if you follow it through, they'll just keep wrapping themselves deeper and deeper into a bind. And it's a whole process of unwinding the bind or helping them or going further into the bind to say, did you see how you created that? Did you
Whoa,
see how you actually keep finding ways to put yourself in an in unsolvable solution and what that does to your
totally.
physiology? Yeah.
Yep. Creating the bind.
Yeah.
Wow. Every time things feel stable, I somehow make it complicated. Why do I
Mm.
do that?
Safety. That's your version of safety, right? That are going, okay, it's stable. And for a lot of people, when things are stable or in a secure relationship, they'll start to like find problems or get the ick or any of those types of things, or just start to like degrade the relationship or the situation. And those are all just strategies uh, and I'm putting air quotes in to create safety, right?
Hmm.
So you'll hear people when they get into a stable relationship, they're like, it's just so boring, right? And or like a job that's actually good, and they're like, at first it feels good, and then they're like, I just don't see the potential here in this job. So every time they're in something that actually could give them a sense of settling into themselves and sense of support and ultimately security, they sabotage it because there's an alarm system that goes off in their body that says, "Oh my gosh, I'm starting to settle or relax, or things are starting to feel secure." Then something is going to happen, and I'm not going to be ready for it. Just like in the rest of my life, someone's going to say something, someone's going to dump me, someone's going to hurt me, I'm going to lose my job, all of these things, and so I unconsciously or subconsciously find these ways to sabotage it first so that I don't have to be unprepared for the inevitability of life.
Yes. That's something you talk a lot about in the book is
Yeah.
how so many of these behaviors and these thought patterns, I mean, it's self-sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like we're out to get ourselves, right? We're out to save and protect ourselves, but the means in which we're doing it, like any addiction, create a lot more complication than they do resolution.
Right. So I realized that my past relationships were all the same: high intensity, low stability. So we're talking about the same thing here. How do I
Hmm.
change that? So this person has the awareness, right? They're just like, how do I like step into a new relationship that isn't this like this roller coaster?
Yeah. So some of it's about getting used to what stability feels like, right? So I give this analogy in the book of like if you're used to eating vegetables and you salt them really heavily, and you're like, this is what tastes good with vegetables is, and then your doctor says, whoa, you've been eating too much salt, you have hypertension, you have to cut all salt immediately. And you go back and you eat vegetables and like they're like so boring and bland, right?
Mm,
For a while. And then at a certain point, you sort of open your taste buds back up to the nuances of the vegetables, of the flavors and the textures, because you've moved out of sort of the high intensity of adding all the salt. Right? So it's similar in relationships of like you have been on a dopamine roller coaster with those when you're in that constant sort of process with those type of relationships, high intensity relationships. because the highs are so highs and the lows, which are quite low, give you an even greater sense of the high. And so it rises above your own threshold of numbness and the things that you're avoiding internally to you and gives you like elation. Well, the highs aren't really that high. They're just high in relationship to the really tough, crappy times. And as you go down, you'll do anything because this is how dopamine works. You'll do anything to get out of the low. You'll hang in there. You'll beg, you'll plead, you'll stay in way past your boundaries being ruptured in order to get a hit of that next high. And so it really involves getting a significant relational detox and doing a lot of self-work on what does and getting more comfortable with stability without high highs. What does just eating an apple like, right? As opposed to making a
Mm.
whole fruit salad. What does just one bite of an apple for a long period of time? Chew it, taste the flavors and the textures that are there, as opposed to making some huge decadent fruit salad and then not having any fruit for 2 weeks because you had a big fruit salad, right?
Yes. You know, this just it makes me just reinforces this idea that like we're so used to the quick fix. And
Mm,
when you are like wanting to adopt to a new way of living, it
yeah,
it really takes time and patience and like new ways of living. It really
yeah,
does. Like
yeah,
you talk about that in your own book, right? Like when you on your own journey and how when you um like in your recovery from being addicted to drama and creating
yeah,
drama, you were like, my life, I felt so bored. I was like, what in the heck? It's like too vanilla, right? I think you said like there was just too much, like it was just like, what now? Right?
yeah,
But you
yeah.
said over time and with like there must have just been like you did it right so and this is what you're coaching people just to be like it takes time right
Takes
Scott.
time. It takes a lot of time and to be kind to yourselves or be kind to other people as they're rewiring, right? It's not just that none of us want fundamentally to be on a roller coaster relationship. None of us want to be in chaos. It's not
No.
something we want, it's something we need. It's something we crave fundamentally on our biological level because there's a lot of underlying pain and loneliness. And
Yes.
drama, chaos, stress is beautifully distracting and it bonds us closer together. It gives us something to talk about, right? So you have a boss that's really annoying at work. It's like you don't even like your coworker, but you have something to bond over, and that somehow feels good. But there's a cost to that constant complaining and using that as the mechanism for relationship.
Oh yes. And on the flip side I also think that you know when you are creating chaos and you've got a lot of chaos in your life it's like the people
Mm.
around you don't want that. Like I know in my
No,
life it's like if that is if people in my life are in that place in their own I'm like I actually don't want to be around that person.
no,
I
no. I
know,
mean,
but
it can be a
that's
little
actually
fun.
well sometimes maybe, but it also it really is just like that's not good for the relationship, the relationships
Yeah.
in your life.
No, no, because that becomes the sort of currency of love between you is drama.
Right. Oh, yeah. Currency of oh. So how do I tell the difference between someone who's naturally intense and someone who thrives on drama?
Well, drama it's an exaggeration, it's intensification of emotions and story um and the sort of volume to which things are at are disproportionate to what's needed to actually adapt or navigate them, right? So it's like if you're blowing out a birthday candle with a fire hose, that's dramatic, right? If
Yeah.
it starts sprinkling out and you go in a hurricane shelter, that's dramatic. So often when people say the word intense, they're referring to one aspect of that. It's like the decibel or the volume of the expression, right? Not the and really when we're talking about an addiction to drama, it's a disproportionate amount of energy, emotion, and
Mm.
attention in order to functionally adapt to anything. So, and that's what we call dysregulated homeostasis, right? Is that it's things are out of balance. We like you need a certain amount of oxygen, right, to live. Need a certain
Mm.
amount of like sodium and calcium in your body at any time for things to function. And what happens after trauma is those levels get all sort of like tainted. We're not able to measure the situation that we're in accurately, and we're not able to respond to it accurately because of that. And that's what happens in trauma is we have this lens that the whole world is against us, and people are just going to hurt us more, or there's another potential threat. And so we're always on that in our senses, like the way our eyes work and our ears and our smell actually changes from trauma to constantly be perceiving more threat. So the world is dangerous out here for those with an addiction to drama. And so they're responding accurately to that, but it's actually very disproportionate because the world isn't as dangerous as what they are perceiving.
Yes. Hmm. So this one, I think, is for all of us. I notice I get sucked into other people's chaos. How can
Hmm.
I protect my energy? You can
Yeah.
just see it, right? You got a friend or a family member, and she's like, "Oh my God!" ah!" And then you're like, how
Yeah.
do you like if you're involved and you're
Yeah.
interacting with this on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do to protect
Yeah.
yourself? You talk about a lot about this in your book, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, so
Strategies.
first know that a heightened state of stress is very contagious. It's the most contagious state there is, right? So if
Mhm.
your friend is constantly like "Ooh," intense and all of that, it's actually contagious. So you're in the mix of it with them physiologically, whether you want to or not. So how you can adjust is setting really good boundaries. It's like if my friend's coming at me all the time and calling me and talking about their ex and blah, 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 and it's just like they're in the vortex of drama, then I would say, "Hey, babes, I only got 10 minutes for you today." Or like, let's talk about this, but then let's talk about something playful. Or, cool, if we're going to talk about this, I'm going to do it while I'm walking with you outside in public, right? As opposed to a closed room where I just am like inundated with their energy. So there's a lot of strategies or don't talk to them, but that's harder when you care about someone, right? So the suggestion in that sense is to like maintain some sense of boundary, time wise, space wise, movement wise, that you're able to just not be sort of in the overwhelm of their intensity.
So, Scott, would there not like if you see this as a pattern, like if it is like you could see that there is this addiction to drama,
Oh
and you're
yeah.
not going to call, but like, would it be? Can you say it in a way that's just like, I'm actually concerned that this is what we are talking about all the time, and it's actually quite like, how can you is it too direct? Like, right,
Yeah, there's a lot of defensiveness for these individuals,
right.
right? They already feel, and this is what I found in the research, that these individuals constantly feel like a victim in their life. They feel like the world's to some level like not kind and against them, and like why me is a common phrase. Like why do bad things always happen to me? And so one of the challenges of confronting them is that you are challenging their very perception of life, how they view themselves, how they view the world. And remember that they feel like their responses are accurate. They feel like their responses are justified.
Right.
And even if it's not justified, even if there's like, well, maybe it's not justified, they'll suddenly create scenarios or go find this like a friend who will justify and validate them so they don't have that cognitive dissonance. Um, and so there's a lot of effort that they do to validate the intensity and the extremes of their behaviors and their response and their thoughts, even if it's not real. And it's painful to see that. It's painful to be around. And so confronting someone and saying, "Hey, Boo, I read this book on addiction to drama. I think this is you. doesn't often go as well as just kind of anonymously leaving it on their doorstep. My book.
Oh, really?
I just
Yeah.
tell them, I'm like, I don't know, just like if you really feel like you have to tell someone, A, I would check your own codependency, and B, I would say just like anonymously send them the book and see what happens.
Ooh, good one. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Scott Lyons,
My
for being with us
pleasure.
today. I really enjoyed all the time that you shared with us. So I thank you, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Enjoy your day, everybody. Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.